Did you know that 247 years ago, a declaration was made that would forever shape the course of human history? On July the 4th, 1776, a group of patriots signed a document that declared the United States of America as an independent nation free from the chains of tyranny. This day, my fellow Americans, symbolizes the very essence of liberty and the relentless pursuit of freedom. It's a day when we celebrate the resilience, bravery, and unwavering spirit of our forefathers who fought to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and for the generations to come. It's a time to reflect on the sacrifices made by our brave men and women in uniform who have defended our freedom on battlegrounds across the globe. From the American Revolution to the World Wars, from the fight against terrorism to the ongoing pursuit of peace, our soldiers have always been the embodiment of valor and selflessness. So as we prepare to celebrate this occasion, let us not forget the weight of the responsibilities that come with the blessings of freedom. Let us honor the sacrifices of our past by embracing the ideals that define us as a nation. Liberty and justice for us all that will only be preserved if we are a nation that embraces "In God We Trust."
Welcome to the Josh Calloway Podcast.
Welcome to the Josh Calloway Podcast. This is Josh Calloway, State Representative in the 10th District of Kentucky. Have my good friend, Mr. Aaron Wells, with me here this evening. How are you doing, Aaron?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I spent way too long today looking for like some American flag shirt, and I was walking through a couple of stores, and around July, you'd think they were everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to find one. I know that's like super random, but it's like the week before, just a few days before July 4th, whenever we're recording this. And I literally saw someone at a store at an electronics store, and their hair was like dyed in the rainbow flag, but I could not find an American flag shirt.
Well, this is what I'll say about that. This is, as we're recording this is the last day of Pride Month, but I heard today that we're actually going to have what's going to be called Pride Summer.
Yeah, that's okay. Assistant Health Secretary.
So, yeah, this is the last day of Pride Month when we're recording this. And the other thing that you have to consider is that based on some things that I've seen in the media, I guess that there's some people that are now being triggered by the American flag.
Yeah.
I think somebody did a video and they drove maybe 5 miles down the road to a store, and they counted like 12 flags in that 5 mile period that they drove, or 5 mile distance that they drove. And evidently it triggered her, and she said it was really weird and odd that we would have American flags everywhere.
In America.
In America. In God we trust, right?
I know.
So that's
right.
That's where we're at. It's what we're dealing with. But it has been a great few weeks. It's been about a week since we've recorded. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things have happened in the news media. And so we have a lot to talk about, a lot of different subjects that I'd like to get into. And definitely, since it is the last day of Pride Month, we definitely have some things to talk about that. We had Senate Bill 150 that an activist judge that is been appointed by a Democrat president has made an injunction on laws that the legislature, the lawmaking body, made a law, and a judge has decided that he doesn't like the law that we made. Therefore, he's put an injunction on it. And this is something, I know that we have to take laws and we have to bounce them against the Constitution. We have to look at constitutionality. I understand that. And if a law is made that is not constitutional, it doesn't need to stand, right? So I get that. But some of these judges just need to get out of their judge position and run to be a legislator, because seems like that's all that they want to do is make laws, and it's easier for them to legislate from the bench than it is to actually run a campaign and go become a lawmaker.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's come out of over the last few days with all the Supreme Court rulings, and I've read or listened to a lot of the dissents on the Democratic side, and it's just Democrat propaganda. It's not even constitutional expertise. These people sound just exactly like AOC or, Rashida Tlaib, whatever. The reason that they are not running for an office, like you're saying, is because, especially in this state, then they hold opinions that are not held by the majority. They hold beliefs that are not held by the majority, and they want to be in a place where they can refute and undermine majority rule. They can refute and undermine our republic. Our republic is set up in such a way for checks and balances.
Yeah.
But all of those checks and balances are granted by the Constitution that they are trying to set on fire by not looking at, by misinterpreting the Constitution. And I don't know if you want to, the whole injunction that was granted was released today, and the judge that released it, I don't know anything about him other than he was appointed, I think, to his position in 2014. But they file amicus briefs. So different experts or whatever will file kind of in support and say, we're going to provide our expertise in this area, and this is our expertise. Well, their expertise on this divisive issue is 8 pages long. That's nothing. Yeah. And the majority of that is their interests, the memorandum of law in support, and then they have one paragraph where they provide their expertise, and it's just gender dysphoria is a clinical condition that is marked by distress due to incongruence. So now, where does incongruence come in there? It's a concept. So how do you prove and I know this is, maybe diving a little too deep on it, but they use these words, incongruence. Mm-hmm. How does a concept in your head provide an incongruence between gender identity and your biological sex? First of all, because gender identity is all in your head.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing. So the incongruence has to be provided not only between one thing that doesn't exist and one thing that does, but also the thing that doesn't exist has to be made up.
Yes.
That's why they say there's like 750 genders or whatever they say that there is.
Well, let's go into this just a little bit and talk about Senate Bill 150. We've talked about it on this podcast before, and there were several bills that were filed in the Kentucky legislative session that dealt with different pieces of whether it was gender affirming care, gender surgeries, and some pieces around things such as gender identity or sexual orientation being taught in the school system. And so Senate Bill 150 was a conglomeration of a lot of things that addressed the state of undress for children, basically, the bathroom issue and locker room issue with girls going into boys, boys going into girls. And it also dealt with this piece of gender transition surgeries and gender affirmation being done and medications being provided, such as puberty blockers and things of that nature. Okay, so this right here is one of the articles. So I want to remind people, if I'm not going to play this video, but when we overrode the veto, because the governor did veto this bill, because he is aligned with this agenda, he supports it. He is supportive and has never come out and said anything derogatory about kids having these irreparable surgeries and irreparable harm being done to them. He's never come out and said anything against that. And we had, I can't remember the total number, maybe 19 people that were arrested that day. We could not conduct business on the House floor because these people locked arms in their seat and began to chant and to scream and to holler and to yell obscenities and they ended up getting arrested as a result of that. We overrode the veto. The bill was getting ready to go into effect. So what has happened in the last little while is that we have seen the public school system, particularly the Kentucky Department of Education, has put guidance out that is absolutely, give me a good word here, because the word I'm thinking is stupid, and so I probably need something a little more
fanciful
for this broadcast. But it's ridiculous,
right?
The conclusion that they came to, because they didn't come to a conclusion. What they did was they decided to do their own thing,
right,
and to bypass what we as the legislature gave them the law and guidance to follow. So that has been going on, and it was getting ready to go into effect. We know the Fayette County school system has already said that they were not going to follow the law. They were going to use that word "or" that was in between those two things and deemed that to mean either or, and that was what they were going to do. So this was all pretty much, we assumed that a judge would possibly put an injunction somewhere inside of this. Right. So it basically carved out a piece of this law and said that in what you're referring to, basically they were going to block all gender or that the Senate Bill 150 would stop the part that would block gender affirming care for trans youth. And there was a group of plaintiffs, including 7 transgender minors. Now think about this. For you people that tell us constantly that are saying this is not going on in Kentucky, this is not happening in Kentucky, why were there minors that filed a motion to keep us from putting this law or from enacting this law if they're not trying to do it, if they're not moving forward with gender transition? So it is happening in Kentucky. It's happening across the U.S. It starts with the affirmation process. It ends with body mutilation that cannot be fixed, right?
Yes.
And so that brings us up to the last few days. The judge does a preliminary injunction and says that the gender affirming care for transgender youth is still going to happen here in the state of Kentucky. So that brings us to a couple things. The first thing that I want to point out, and I put a statement out today, and I think I'll just read that statement because this is what came to my mind as I was thinking about this. We have people in our society that are bent on enabling children to live out a lie and incur irreparable harm in the process. No amount of affirmation will ever enable someone to be something that they are not, nor can ever be. While I believe that we will win this in court, there is a backlash coming against those who have been complicit in the abuse of these vulnerable youth. They will wonder, being these youth, will wonder why the adults in their life didn't tell them the truth. Why are there people in our society, Aaron, that are bent on allowing children to live out lies and to do irreparable harm to their body?
Yeah.
And that's the question I keep coming back to. So I understand that there's an agenda. I understand there's a system here. I understand that we're dealing with spiritual things that are not seen, but that are at work behind the scenes. But we have people in our world that are absolutely perverted.
Yes. Yep.
And I think that is what we are dealing with. People's minds have been perverted, and they are pushing this, and that backlash, it's coming.
Yeah.
And I understand that in some countries that were ahead of us, they're already incurring and seeing this backlash.
Yes. Sweden, last time I checked, Sweden, Finland, and even England right now, or Great Britain, whatever, are starting to roll. Sweden and Finland have done some massive rollbacks on things. And England is starting to, get into that because they're still in the investigation process. You would think they could just look across the North Sea or whatever and see all the investigations being done there and go ahead and put a stop to all of it. I will say a couple of things about the injunction. First of all, one of the statements that he makes, this is the judge there, he says the Commonwealth offers a number of superficial arguments to the contrary. Speaking of, he had just stated the case for the ACLU that the ACLU had presented, none of which are persuasive. So this is the judge's initial statement whenever he's beginning to try to dissect this thing. All right. None of which are persuasive to who? You have, let's take, for instance, the protesters that were there. There were 19 that were arrested. There were more Republican legislators in that House. That's a supermajority. Right. There were 80 Republican legislators in the House that were elected to be there. Mm-hmm. The elected representatives that voted for the bill outnumbered the people that were arrested by a factor of 4.
Right.
You understand that this is not persuasive to the majority. This is not persuasive to the majority. They voted for those people to put them in there. It's not persuasive to the legislature because they felt the urgency to pass this. Whenever it said in that article that the way that they phrased it was that they managed to override the veto or something like that, 79 to 22 or whatever it was, or 26, is not managing to override a veto.
Yeah.
That is a very definitive statement. So the illusion that they are trying to create here, all the way from saying that it's incongruent, all the way from saying that they're two different concepts, to saying that the superficial arguments are not persuasive. All of this is trying to create this illusion to continue performing the detrimental thing.
So then how is this not activism?
Yeah. Well, it is. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how is it not? And we're not dealing with the constitutionality of it. I think that we win that argument when it is appealed. But there's no other explanation for this than that it is activism. Right. It is somebody with an agenda that has the power to enact their will in place of legislators' will and the people that elected them.
I will also say, too, having read HB 173 that you introduced, I didn't read the entire text of HB 470, but there was a lot of work that went into HB 173 to make it sound legally.
Correct.
And to make it
defensible. And the same with 470.
Yes.
I don't know that there has ever been a bill that was vetted more strongly than HB 470 was from a legal standpoint, because we knew what we were up against. And Representative Decker did an unbelievable job at vetting that and trying to make sure that it was very sound. And as you saw when we got into the introduction of it after it left the House into the Senate, we struggled over there with people supporting it because they were buying in again to this emotional concept instead of fact and truth.
And this is the danger, in my opinion, is whenever you allow people who are not fully invested, and understand the consequences and the weight of what you're talking about here. This bill, the weight of it on our youth and on our future is massive. Whenever those people begin to manipulate the bill, then it opens up room for these activists to do what they want to do. Right. You have to have somebody in leadership or in sponsoring the bill or in those discussions that is aware not only of what needs to be done to help the children, but is also aware of how these people operate.
Yeah.
Whenever you have this kind of attitude as a Republican, whenever you have this attitude in a Republican with a supermajority in Kentucky, whenever you have this attitude of, well, we want to be nice to everybody, and we want to try to do what's best. Whatever that wishy-washy attitude is, while they're pumping little kids full of, drugs and hormone blockers, puberty blockers. If that's the attitude that you're going to have, then you open the door for those few people that are in those positions that they have been placed in order to affect. You open the door for them.
Yes.
The legislative body, and you can call it leadership. My opinion being leadership there, because it seems like a lot of people were on board with these stricter bills that had been well vetted. In my opinion, I'm saying leadership in this area. Then they need to be held accountable for this.
Right.
This activism and this ruling here. Now, the ruling is total junk. It's absolute junk. The amicus brief is it looks like something that an 8th grader put together and then asked somebody to throw in some Latin words for the amicus and all that stuff. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
This idea of scientific consensus, we can do a whole podcast on that, about how that has affected our society. The injunction arguments are junk. The amicus brief is junk. But this still wouldn't have been possible if we as conservatives, or if the leadership as conservatives would have just gone with the vetted bills that had been worked on.
Yeah.
And that were ready for this. Y'all's bills were ready for these challenges.
Right.
They were ready to stand up to these challenges. And the leadership was not ready to stand up to the challenges.
Yes.
And maybe this will open their eyes. Maybe they'll look around and say, hey, man, we got blindsided here. Our entire, all of these 70-something representatives, 20-something senators were on board with this issue, and we dropped the ball. Maybe they say that. I doubt it. But maybe they do. Oh. However it is the case, it shows that you can have a majority of conservative people in Kentucky. You can have a supermajority in the legislature, and 2 or 3 people in leadership can derail the whole thing. That's
exactly
unbelievable.
Right. That's exactly right. And
they can open the door. They can open the door for all of those people that have every intention of forcing their non-majority opinion on the people of Kentucky. They open the door for them and say, here, you can come in here and fight. Our laws don't need to be that way. Our laws need to shut the door on the people that want to groom children. I'm not talking about to use them. I don't know about that. To groom them into an ideology that is going to be detrimental to them.
Yes. And I think that's why we have to constantly remind people that every vote matters.
Yes.
Because the representative that makes the laws in your behalf, the senator makes the laws in your behalf at a state level, at a federal level, the president that appoints judges across this country, federal judge, this was a federal judge, that appoints these judges to these positions, all of it matters. Every bit of it matters. And what we've seen here is that elections have consequences.
Right.
And this is a consequence of an election, of a judge that was appointed.
Right.
And again, when we don't go far enough as a legislature, and we do not make sure, as you said, that we shut that door, we open ourselves up for activism.
Yeah.
And that's what we are seeing. Well, we've seen a lot of things happen from a judicial system this past week. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that this issue has been in front of us. We've talked about it. And we're not going to stop. I'm not going to quit talking about it, because, again, this is our children, and we're going to continue to hit it head on every chance that we get. We'll talk about some more of it tonight. But in the last week, we've also seen some large Supreme Court decisions that have been made that are monumental for our country. And we saw that in some of these decisions, specifically the one in regard to President Biden giving out our dollars to buy votes, is basically, what he was doing, saying that he was going to be able to erase everyone's student loan debt. I think it was 9-0. I think pretty much, if I remember right, every judge sided with the fact that it was unconstitutional to be able to do that. The other thing that we saw, and maybe you could talk a little bit about this. You spent some time in the college scene, got a little bit involved with the college world.
Right.
You know, you were considering maybe, you know, staying in that field,
right,
for a future job. And what happened with this in regard to affirmative action? What do you think the repercussions are going to be of that outside of the realm of higher learning and as far as inside of our businesses and things of that nature?
right.
I think it was a great ruling.
Yes.
I have said it over and over again that to say that we are not a racist country, that we constantly see people introducing policy that segregates.
Right.
Constantly segregates.
The Democrats have always segregated people. That's what they've always done.
We saw that
They just have
happen.
different arguments.
You know, let's start, and we have one in the state of Kentucky that I am adamantly against. But these race commissions to where we segregate people out, and we look at people through the lens of color, and we look at them through, instead of just everybody is a person, everybody gets the same opportunity. And then what they do with that opportunity is on them.
Yes.
But what they have tried to do is, you know, we talk about equality versus equity. Those have been two words that have been talked about a lot in public. But what we have tried to do, what society has tried to do, and what people that have racist views,
right,
who claim to not be racist, have tried to do is to make the equality of outcome to be the same as input. So we have to make sure everybody gets the same input and everybody gets the same outcome, no matter what type of effort they individually put into that.
right.
And what we have done through that is we've saw that why Harvard University went through this lawsuit, and what took place was that some people said, hey, we can't get into your college because of our race. You're literally blocking us from getting in. And so I thought it was a good ruling. Yeah. There's some pieces of it that I wish we could go stronger with, but
well,
what are your thoughts?
Roberts.
Yes.
Roberts always scales back a little bit. Clarence Thomas's dissent was one of the most American and realistic arguments and framing of race in the United States that's probably ever been put to paper. It was incredible. Very, very smart person anyway.
Yes.
And has such
of being a racist.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Has such a grasp of reality and of the Constitution and what the Constitution intends, and is able to put it in such a picture in the dissent that in the supporting opinion. I said dissent earlier, but in the supporting opinion, that it shows so clearly that the dissent is trying to do everything they can to tear the country apart.
Yes.
I have tons of thoughts, obviously, on this bill. First of all, just for the background, it's Harvard and UNC that were bringing this lawsuit. And basically what was happening is, let's just take Harvard, for instance. I heard some statistics today, and I'm not going to quote them perfectly, but I'm going to be, pretty close. Basically, if you score in the top 10% on the SAT, then you're like a prime candidate for all the colleges. That's like a 1580 or above, something like that.
Yeah.
Or 1550 or above on the SAT. So the percentages that were presented to the court were like, I don't even know, 12% of white applicants, or maybe white applicants was only like 1%. I can't remember, but it's based on the population and the people that apply and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Hispanic was 31%. Asian, I think, was 12%. Hispanic was 31% of those in that top tier who applied got in, and black was 50%.
Yeah.
So basically, if you were in the top 10%, there would be in the scoring and you were black, then you could flip a coin of whether or not you were going to get into Harvard.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that it was like 50,000, 40-something thousand maybe white people scored in that category in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
50,000, I may have those reversed, of Asians scored in that category. Hispanics, I can't remember the number on that, but the black number was 2,200 that scored in that category.
Yeah.
So basically, all 2,200 of those people could have flipped a coin to get in. That means that they are disenfranchising thousands more of white or Asian applicants. You know, and that's what the court said. The other issue is one social issue and one what you would call like a real world consequence.
Mm-hmm.
The other problem is that the people that score in the top 40%, right? Only 1% of whites got accepted, 1% of this, 2% of this, and it was like 12 or 13% of black applicants.
Yeah.
So basically, the average grade that was being taken on the SAT from black applicants was like 273 points below the Asian applicants, if that makes sense. Basically, what we're saying is that people that did not score well enough to get into the college, drastically not well enough, not well enough to qualify for a lot of colleges, were able to get into some of the most rigorous academic programs that exist here as far as workload and all of those things. Now, the philosophy has changed, and so it's all liberal mumbo-jumbo in a lot of places, but the workload is still extremely strenuous. It requires, 24/7 attention pretty much.
Yeah.
So they were having a massive dropout rate with the black applicants, right? And then whenever they would get out of law school, Harvard Law School, then it was like a drastic number that couldn't pass the bar exam. They couldn't actually pass the exam that would allow them to work in the field that they had been given a scholarship. So that's a real world consequence there. That doesn't promote black people at all.
Right.
That disenfranchises them. Here's the thing. If they could go to a college like, let's say they could go to a college like Duke instead, and they could manage that workload, then if they have good grades, then they can get into a really good law school and their career path continues. Instead, they're being put in an undergraduate program here or a law program here that they're not ready for. And so they drop out and their career ends.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do if you drop out of Harvard? Who's going to say, yeah, come on in here. I dropped out of Harvard, but now I have a law degree. But they still couldn't pass the bar exam.
Right.
So they can't work as a lawyer.
So didn't Justice Jackson recused herself from this position, right? Or from this lawsuit? If
it was 6-3
correctly,
it was 6-3. So that meant all of them had to vote. I think.
Okay.
No, because she wrote the dissenting opinion. It was not very good.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe we're.
I was thinking maybe that was another case.
Maybe
but,
so.
The thing about it is that she is in the position that she is in based on the concept of affirmative action. So President Biden said that he was going to put her in that position because of the fact that she was a black female.
Right.
Instead of the fact that she was qualified, that she was the best person for the job, that she was constitutionally minded,
right?
None of that mattered. And that's what happens is when we start doing these types of things based on those concepts, this is what I believe. I believe that affirmative action has been one of the pieces of the puzzle that has preserved some racism and those types of things in our nation, instead of us eliminating that and looking at the individual and the person that is best qualified for the job.
Right.
And you were talking about Justice Thomas. I think that, and I'm not always or put my stamp of approval of everything that Babylon Bee puts out, but they put something out that said Justice Thomas once again suffers severe burns while writing absolutely fire opinion. Yeah. So
and there's a couple of points there. Clarence Thomas is the example of meritocracy. right, worked from his grandparents were, what do they call them? Sharecroppers.
Mm-hmm.
Very disadvantaged growing up. Very smart, applied himself, worked hard. In order to become a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, he stared down Joe Biden, Ted Kennedy, and all of them that were
That's exactly right.
lobbing false accusations against them. He stood alone in front of them and took them all down.
Yeah.
Embarrassed them all on national television. That's what you get in a meritocracy. You get the minority communities shining as an example of what America can provide them and what they can do here. The affirmative action, you get Ketanji Brown, whatever, Jackson.
Yeah.
You just read her dissent and his opinion, and you can see which one is best.
Exactly.
Which one provides the best future for us as a country. Both of those people are black. Neither one of them are white. It doesn't have anything to do with the color of their skin. It's the fact that one was promoted in order to support the Democrat agenda. And we could go through one more point here. To support the Democrat agenda, and one participated in the meritocracy and succeeded. Uh-huh. Whenever you compare those thousands of 50,000 Asian people, they only represent 6% of the population.
Yeah.
And 50,000 of them score in that top level in the ACT. The African-American community represents, 13 roughly percent of the population, and only 2,200 succeed. You know what that is a testament to? Has nothing to do with the color of their skin, obviously. There are people who are able to succeed smarter than, I don't know of anyone smarter on the law than Justice Thomas. No one at all, to be honest with you. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin. The problem is that it is a testament to the failure of democratic policy and governance.
Yeah.
If you look at the percentage of people that are African American that live in Democrat-run places, that's the problem.
Yes.
Their education policies fail. Their affirmative action policies fail. Every idea that they have fails. It gets us further into debt. It divides our country. It pulls the races apart. It pulls the social classes apart. Their great grand ideas about this economic reset during COVID just made their buddies richer and the rest of us poorer because of inflation.
Those two justices alone prove the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party and that mindset, right? They prove it.
Yes.
Because one individual succeeds based on merit. The other individual succeeds based on the desire for them, as you said, to advance the Democrat mindset in America, but also to check a box, right? The one that did it by merit because America allowed them to do that is constantly attacked because he is a conservative for no other reason than because he is a conservative. So that's one point that I want to make about it. The second point that I want to make about it is that both of them proved that America is a great place. It is
for minority people. That's
it is
exactly
a great place. Where else in the world can, in a period of, 60 years or whatever the time period be, that a group of people can go from not being able to vote, not being able to go into certain buildings with white people, not be able to do all of these things that was going on in regard to segregation, everything, go from that to being the top law enforcer of the United States of America, and write brilliant, unbelievable dissent and opinions on America's laws and America's Constitution. I mean, you think about it, and they are constantly trying to tell us that we're racist because they want to divide us. They're constantly trying to tell us how bad that America is and the system is and how racist it is and how that we have to have these boxes to check, or people don't that identify in those boxes don't ever make it to the table. But that is false. That is a lie. It has been proved untrue over and over and over again. And one thing about Tim Scott, and I think we'll do a show before too long on the presidential election coming up. But one thing about his message, regardless of whether you support him, don't support him, like him, don't like him, he has tried to make it clear that he is not an exception. But he is part of the rule that America, if you apply yourself, you work hard, if you do your best, that you can succeed here.
Yes. And Justice Thomas made a statement in his opinion, his supporting opinion. He said, roughly speaking, they hear that individuals are not defined by the obstacles they face, but rather by how they approach those obstacles. And his life is a testament to that. Ketanji Brown Jackson is on the court, but the ability to compete in legal matters against him is just not there.
Yeah.
And the reason that she is there is because somebody decided, oh, the obstacles in front of you are the reason why you're not qualified. We're going to remove those obstacles. And then somebody who overcame those obstacles and didn't have anybody hand them out because he's a conservative, and they weren't going to give him anything. They were going to fight him all the way. Again, we're testifying here about his overcoming of all those obstacles against Joe Biden, who's now the president and who was then, I believe, the chair of the Judicial Committee in the Senate. All of those obstacles that he overcame has created a justice and an environment that can live in reality. You know what I'm saying? And can operate in reality and can provide constitutionally sound opinions for the Supreme Court. The other one does not live in reality. She lives in a make-believe world, and that's why he said in his supporting opinion is that she sees the world differently than it is. And that he sees it. She sees it all through the lens of race. I've got news for you. That's how the Democrats have always seen the world, is through the lens of race. They were the ones who started the Ku Klux Klan. You say, I don't care. They can say they switched all they wanted, all they want to. They did not switch. They created the Ku Klux Klan. They're the ones who were going to the Republican rallies after the Civil War, where the black people were, because the Republicans would go to them, and they were shooting them up and mass killing them. Talk about mass murder. That's where mass murders were going on. Mass murders were going on after the Civil War. Are Democrats going and shooting up Republican rallies and killing black people? That's how it has always been. This new packaging that they have of separating out black people is not setting them up to succeed. It's setting them up to fail.
That's right.
Every policy that they have implemented since Lyndon B. Johnson, and a lot of them before, but especially since Lyndon B. Johnson and forward, has completely failed the African-American community. Completely failed them. Not only has it not elevated them, it has caused that community to regress, because the government has a stranglehold on their future.
But they have to create these classes of people so that they can maintain the power over them, and they have to be victims. So they have produced victims out of race issues. Well, this is what we're starting to see. We're starting to see all of a sudden Hispanics are saying, man, these policies aren't very good for us. They're not working out. We probably need to do something different. And they've started voting different. We have seen that.
So, and so they've started calling Hispanics white supremacists.
That's right. And we've seen that with the black community as well, where there have been many of them that have said these policies are not working for us. So now we have the LGBTQAI plus / / two-spirit.
Bunny ears.
Whatever. All that goes with it. Victims. Because they have to maintain victimhood to keep their power.
Right.
And so they've had this, and that's why I always push back against any type of dividing out people by groups and by segregation. That's exactly what it is. But back to the point I was making just a little bit ago, is that both of them have proved that America is a great place to be.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a risk that comes with this box checking mentality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we are literally one heartbeat, one breath, one day away from President Harris because we had to check a box.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one sandbag.
One sand, whatever the case may be, one step up the airplane away. That's the risk that we run because of that mindset. We have to get back to a merit-based system and mindset.
Right.
And I know how you were raised, and you know how that I was raised.
Right.
And I had a lot of input from my dad, but also a lot of input from my pastor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all that it was about. It was never about what side of the track that we lived on. It was never about how much money that my dad made. My dad worked a job. My mom stayed at home. My dad barely made ends meet so that he could put all 5 of us through private Christian school, okay? And did everything that he could to enable us to get a good education and to be in the environment that he wanted us to grow up in.
Right.
We moved into Breckinridge County, and all of it was about if you will work hard, if you will be honest,
overcome,
if you will push through obstacles, you can be successful.
Yep.
And that type of system, it begets on itself. It reproduces itself over and over and over. Victimhood is not sustainable.
Right.
Because at some point, all the free stuff runs out.
Yeah.
All the things that we promised you that you were going to get, Andy Bashir, if you teachers will vote for us, we'll give you a $2,000 raise. Where's your raise?
Psych. Yeah.
Where's the raise at?
And we're going to cut your benefits.
Where's it at?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to get back to this, a culture of character.
Right.
Culture of character.
Right.
To where people work hard, they overcome obstacles, they trust, they have faith in God, they trust God with the outcome of their life, and they provide the input that they can personally put into it.
Right.
And it's a winning recipe.
Yeah.
It works. And we've proved that for centuries, up until the last little while, and all of a sudden...
and I mean, the evidence is so clear sitting before us right there on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
You know, it's like so clear, the two mindsets. I think one thing that has been true of, true pastors and men of God who truly care about their flocks and care about people is they've known and preached for a long time that our society has been, tanking as far as laziness. And one thing that our pastors always said to us is, look, if you just work hard, you're going to have a leg up on most people. If you just don't let anything stand in your way and you work hard, you're going to have a leg up on most people because they ain't gonna face the obstacles. In
this day and hour, if you just show up every day on the job
and don't do drugs,
and are sober, you're already a step ahead of where a lot of people are.
And in a labor market where we have too many jobs for the people that are applying for the jobs and not enough people that are willing to stick out the jobs, you can advance and move up in a company faster now than you ever have. I mean, I've talked to people, I talked to a bunch of people doing, the business that we do and whatnot. We're in people's homes. We're talking to them about their sons and their daughters or whatever, just chatting. And I mean, if you just apply yourself, within 2 years, they're putting 18, 19, 20-year-olds into positions of leadership.
Yes.
But if they just work hard and they have a good head on their shoulders.
Yes.
The other thing that we're seeing here is all of this is a result of progressivism.
Right.
And I think progressivism can be clearly defined as creating crisis and forcing change.
Yeah.
If they can't create crisis and force change and people actually look at their policies, they'd never get elected again.
Yes.
They have to lie about crises. They have to force some kind of emergency all the time. This is their mind. This is how they govern. And the end goal of this governance is not the best for the United States of America. It's not what's best for our children. It's not about providing a peaceful and a successful society. It's not about providing a safe place for our children to grow up in. Mm-hmm. It's about them being in power.
Right.
That's all that it's about. They'll create whatever crisis they have to. They'll force whatever change they have to. They'll have medical experts lie about whatever they have to have them lie about in order for them to ultimately gain absolute power.
Look at what's just happened in the last week, okay? So think about what took place with the little submarine that the billionaire was on, okay? Right. So everybody, I'm sure you saw it in the news. Everybody heard about it. We did for days.
Right.
We heard about it for days. We were hearing
minute by minute updates.
Yeah, we were hearing stories about that where we picked up these noises, and you know, it's people on the side beating with a coffee cup. We think we're hearing, and these people are starting to run out of air, and they're getting closer to running out of air, and they're getting closer, and then all of a sudden, from a Sunday to a Thursday, on Thursday, it's like it disintegrated pretty much. We found some pieces of it. It's imploded. Oh, and by the way, we knew this on Sunday, and the whole time that we're being told to listen for the pounding on the side of the sub, the knocking on it, mm-hmm. and, you know, to have empathy for these people that could be in 32 or below degree temperature without any heat or light at pitch black. They're starting to lose their air, and they're trying to figure out how to breathe. While all this was going on, Epstein emails were released with J.P. Morgan, mm-hmm. and a bunch of them have been deleted.
Yeah.
Impeachment articles were filed against President Biden. Oh, maybe you heard about this. The president's son, Hunter Biden,
hide all the money, Biden,
hiding the money. He actually got some charges that he admitted to. All this happened. John Durham is testifying before Congress about the Russia hoax and everything that took place there, and I'm mm-hmm. talking about corruption. Mm-hmm. Unlike we have never seen.
And all the whistleblower reports came out.
Oh, and by the way, and there was $6 billion of taxpayer money that got lost somewhere between here and the Ukraine. All this was going on while they're telling us, look over here, look over here, look over here, because they don't want us to see what is going on over here. That's exactly what you were saying is where we're at. It is constant crisis pushing. It is constant diversion. All of this is taking place because mm-hmm. they don't want us to see, because their policies fail.
Yeah.
They fail.
Maybe the $6 billion was on the sub that imploded or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why the Navy was down there getting all that money.
I still think maybe there's hope that somehow Hunter's trying to get that for his child that he's not been willing to own, you know. So,
he gave that child some of his paintings, so, you know.
Which has been fairly profitable for him somehow, because I guess he's such a great painter.
Well, if she can get a Chinese unnamed businessman to buy them, then she'll make a bunch of money. If she just puts them on the open market, then she's going to be able to buy a candy bar, maybe.
While we're here, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but President Biden is not enjoying having to answer questions about this particular issue. In case you haven't seen, he's kind of pushed back a little bit on this issue, and when reporters ask him about it, he can tend to maybe get a little bit on edge as a result of these questions. I've got a video here. Let me play this real quick, and let's listen to this and see what we can find out here when the president is asked about these particular issues that are going on.
Mr. President, why did you give millions of borrowers false hope? You've doubted your own authority here in the past.
I didn't give any false hope. The question was whether or not I would
This
do
is a
even
student
more
debt.
than was requested. What I did, I thought was appropriate,
Whoa.
was able to be done, and would get done. I didn't give borrowers false hope, but the Republicans snatched away the hope that they were given, and it's real.
Those
real hope.
dirty
Thank you.
Republicans.
Will you cancel
You overstepped your authority. Did you overstep your authority?
I'm sorry, but
In that case,
there's issues here.
in that case too, then the Supreme Court literally used Nancy Pelosi's.
I didn't give false hope.
And was able to
Listen,
be done, and would get done.
watch this.
I didn't give borrowers false hope, but the Republicans snatched away the hope that they were given, and it's real.
Oh, that's what we
real
did.
hope. Thank you.
Mr. President, will you
Thank
cancel
you. He does not like to be questioned at all
Right.
about these particular things. Here he is here in regard to Hunter Biden.
President Biden, how involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't.
Were you?
No.
President Biden, how involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't.
Were you?
No.
Just snap at him. If you don't want to answer the question, just holler at him. And then he goes on with MSNBC, I believe it was yesterday. They literally would not ask him any question about any of these important things. They didn't even ask him about his Bidenomics
Right.
that he's been talking about and touting.
Well, you know, they're calling it Bidenomics, but Biden doesn't know anything about those Bidenomics. You know, the only thing he knows how to say in reference to Bidenomics is, "I can't do trickle down economics anymore." That's all he knows how to say. They also have this phrase in reference to Bidenomics, which I guess is, you know, we just all get dementia and forget that we have debt. I guess that's how that works. You know, that's Bidenomics here. But they say we're going to build from the middle out and the bottom up. And first of all, I don't know if you've ever taken macroeconomics or microeconomics, but that is the whole system of economics is built on stable structure and foundation.
Yeah.
You know, and then you build from a place of stability up. If you build the middle out, then that's just bloating. That's not actually doing anything. And then we're going to go from the bottom up. This president has been more detrimental. This president and Obama were more detrimental to the middle class. During Obama's presidency, the middle class was absolutely gutted, just destroyed, absolutely destroyed. And with inflation and taxes and everything that Biden has introduced, gas prices, everything going through the roof, that affects the middle class more than it affects anybody. Yeah. They have the furthest to drive most of the time. They have the most, you know, cars to deal with. Most of their income is dependent on the moving of the country and whatever happens there. That's where a lot of the middle class operate. You know, they're trying to shift the middle class into, technology is what they're trying to do. But all technology does is create super billionaires and then everybody that works for them. And you see what happened with their companies. All the people that they were bringing up into the middle class, they laid off at like 9,000 or 10,000 at a time. Yeah. Because it's all a numbers game there. So this middle out stuff is absolutely ridiculous. You know, could make other comments.
No,
there.
it's the entire system, and it brings me to my last point. We'll close out with this, but the other night I got invited to an event. And I get to this event, I was asked to speak and to be a part of a panel that was there and discuss some of the issues that are going on in our society. And there were, I don't know, but probably 20 or 22 sets of grandparents that were there. A few parents that were there as well. And when I say parents that actually still had kids in the public school system, but a lot of grandparents that were there. And they were really seeking help. They're asking, what do we do? Like, we are concerned about the direction of our country. We're concerned about where our grandchildren are going to end up. We're concerned about things that they are being taught. And what do we do? What can we do? And it was very sobering. It was very humbling. And it was very invigorating to look at the fire that was in these people's eyes that are saying, help us, arm us, tell us what to do. We're ready to fight.
Right.
And I made this statement, and I believe it to be true. I believe it to be true. And some people are absolutely disgusted with the things that we have discussed tonight and the fact that we're here as a country.
Right.
They're disgusted with it. And they're looking for a single thing to fix it. An election, a presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
But where we have come to as a country and where we're at as a state right now, there's no single election that's going to fix this.
Right.
There's no silver bullet. There's no single event except for if Jesus was to come out.
Right. Yeah.
And immediately he can fix it all.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to. We know in prophecy what's going to happen. My point is that this is not a Donald Trump fix.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a Ron DeSantis fix. This is not a Tim Scott fix. There's no single event thing that's going to happen. They have played the long game. Mm-hmm. They have for years been patient.
Right.
They've given up elections just to wait it out, to be able to set themselves up, to be able to gain power and gain influence. Right. And we are not going to do a single event thing and get our country out of the mess that is in. I think the single thing, most important thing that we can do is pray. I think we have to stand and speak the truth, but we are going to have to fight and grind this thing out. And every day, on every hand, at every turn, take a stand and do what is right.
Right.
And move, and the truth stands on its own, but the truth has to be repeated, and the truth has to be stood up on.
Right.
So we've got to take a stand up on truth. And it was just interesting to listen to these grandparents. There was a parent that was there, and she began to tell me that her daughter was being sucked in by this LGBTQ AI plus mindset in the school system. And people knew it was going on, and nobody was telling her about it. A year and a half nearly goes by before she really understands what is going on, and these things are embedded in her mind, and people in the school system were pushing her forward in this, and were, for lack of a better word, were grooming her in this ideology.
Right.
And she is absolutely broken. Like, as a parent, how did this happen? Why did I not get the chance to intervene? Why did I not know? Why was this intentionally kept from me?
Right.
Those types of things. And I get it. There are great teachers in the school system. There are great people out there that are trying to help children. But we have a system as a whole that is against what we're for.
Right.
There was somebody that came to the event, and basically, they just wanted to complain about the fact that they said that we were, why are y'all banning books? Because we were talking about getting pornographic books out of the school system. Mm-hmm. So why are y'all banning books? And the comment was made, first of all, this is 2023. These books are everywhere. Why are taxpayer dollars paying to put pornography in front of our children and introduce them to it?
Right.
That's the question.
Yep.
And we have to get more people engaged on asking those types of questions.
Yes.
On speaking and standing on the truth, and on exposing these people. There is a self-destruct mode that is built into many of these policies, right?
Right.
You've said that and alluded to that several times tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's built into it to self-destruct.
Yep.
But we have people that are misguided, and then we have people that are misguiding people.
Mm-hmm.
The people misguiding people are the enemy. The people that are misguided need to hear the truth. And we need people to rise up.
Yep.
And I mean, 2 Chronicles 7:14, my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways.
Mm-hmm.
Then will I hear from heaven, forgive their sin, I'll heal their land.
Right.
Right? So we desperately need that.
Yeah.
But that is not going to happen without people that will do what that verse says.
Right.
Passiveness is not going to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Silence is not going to fix it.
Yeah.
And so we need people to rise up, to do the work,
Right.
to take the stand. And you said this to me the other day, and it is so true. This has to happen at the grassroots local level.
Yep. That's right.
It's exactly where it has to happen.
That's where the other side, well, not really, but that's where the other side tried to start.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't get grassroots moving in their direction because they have too many people that wake up. You know, the grassroots people, as corrupted as our system has become by liberal ideology and, you know, years and years of indoctrination, there's still the power there at the local level for individuals and families to be able to go to war against these ideologies, not by taking up arms or any of those things yet. You know, I guess there could be a day that happens, but there's still the power there, and that's what Senate Bill 5 was about.
Mm-hmm.
Giving parents, grandparents, you know, even students possibly, the ability to be able to identify the problems that are in their schools and be able to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is that, you know, the people that oppose all of this are strategically placed.
Right. New Jersey.
Right.
The Attorney General
Mm-hmm.
of New Jersey has filed a lawsuit against 3 school districts in the state of New Jersey because they have a policy that says if your child wants to be called by a different name or wants to be called by a different pronoun or change their gender, then you need to tell the parent.
Yep.
And the Attorney General of that state has filed suit against those 3 school districts.
Yeah.
Against the taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
People that were part of the people that voted them into office.
Right.
And they have declared war.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what they have done.
Yes.
They have declared war against the sovereignty of parents.
Right.
And their ability to raise their children in the way that they desire for them to be raised.
I do believe on some levels that all of this that they have built has had to be under the cover of darkness. It's had to be hidden. It couldn't be revealed to everybody until the right time. And yes, there's been this massive, you know, structure built and organizations and paid protesters and you know, activist judges and activist education commissioners and activist, you know, local board of education people. Yes, all of this structure has been built, but it hasn't been tested yet.
Yeah.
And it is our responsibility to put it to the test.
Yeah.
We may not can dismantle all of this. I don't know. You know, the future is unknown in some ways. But we should be able to, especially as conservatives and Christians, should be able to stand together and put their idiocy to the test.
Yes.
That's what we should be able to do. I don't think it can survive that. It's not, like you're saying, it's not a magic bullet. But I don't think that it is as big of a mountain as we see it as right now. It's built on instability it's built on lies.
Mm-hmm.
And if the truth is just given a chance, if it's just given an equal chance, if that's what we can create with policy, with the legislative session, just allow truth to be given a chance, then I think that will win.
A perfect example. I think you had a news article pulled up a little bit ago. If you could pull that up, of what is a health administrative official, just
most womanly woman. Hey, that's somebody's mother right there.
Look at what they are trying to get us to accept.
Right.
Look at this. This is in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Senate confirms first transgender cabinet official.
Right.
I mean, just on the face of what they're trying to do, not only is it disgusting and detestable and wicked and ungodly, but do they really think, like, it's insulting
to think that I'm that stupid.
To think that I think that this is normal and natural, and that it is what you're telling me it is, because I can clearly see, and I know that's not always the case, because man, have they improved their ability to do surgeries, right?
There's some things that even nanorobots can't fix. You know what I'm saying?
That this is where we are.
I'm going to tell you though, there are some weird, perverted old men out there. I'm just, letting you know in this context, the Levine dude is the one that declared it a summer of pride.
Yes.
That's the assistant health secretary. Now he is promoting ideologies.
His name is Rick, by the way.
Rick. I didn't know his first name.
I think it's Rick. I think he says his
Richard?
name is Richard, but I think he says his name is Rachel.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can, and again,
there's this article here from the Daily Wire. So this is a daycare worker that is charged in the same child pornography investigation as the nation's first elected trans state lawmaker. So the first guy that was elected, and they don't have a picture of him here, but it's the same thing. Does not look like a woman at all. Most manly woman ever created. This daycare worker was taking pictures of the kids that she was supposed to be taking care of in horrible circumstances, we'll just put it that way, and sending them to that transgender dude.
Yeah.
This was their racket that they were doing. This is what he was interested in seeing, was what she would provide. That is absolutely disgusting. And there's parents there that don't even know if their kids were exploited or not. They don't even know. They don't know the whole context. They don't know anything, but they're just absolute. Like, if my child was put into a situation like that, and we don't put our children in daycare. Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, just it's not even close. It's not even close to a woman at all.
That's insulting.
Yes, and it's almost like he created
that I am going to buy into that.
It's almost like he created this persona, this identity, and we've talked about false identities on here and how all of this is tied to identity and not to gender. But it's almost like he created this false persona in order to provide cover so that he could be a pedophile.
That's right. And if they don't want to be called groomers, stop grooming.
Yes, and stop the drag queens. Stop getting arrested for child pornography. How's that sound?
Yeah, I saw in Toronto the other day. This guy calls the police to report that there were naked people in front of children, and it was at a pride parade. He literally calls the police.
Right.
He gets on the phone with them and discusses with them that he saw naked men and they were in front of children and needed to know, what needed to be done about it. And they basically said, was it at the pride parade, and he said, yeah, and they're like, well, we know that's going on. It happens every year, and really not much we can do about it.
Yeah. And there's also parents that'll take their kids to that junk.
Exactly.
And cheer it on. And that's child abuse.
Yeah.
Bottom line, that's child abuse.
Yeah.
If they were to, if a man were to, they can do that there. Out in California, they can allow a man who's not had any surgeries, they let him walk around naked in a women's only spa area in front of little girls and in front of women. Mm-hmm. They let that go on because he's transgender. Doesn't matter. I guess they actually did prosecute him possibly.
Yeah.
But it took, an act of Congress and, a herd of wildebeest in order to get that done.
Yeah.
If you identify in this group, then you can commit crimes for which, if anyone else does it, they would throw you under the jail. You understand? It's not everybody involved in that group is a pedophile. We're not saying that. But that group does have the ability to welcome somebody to just claim to be a part of it, and it provides them all the cover that they need to commit absolutely horrible sexual atrocities against children and women.
Even what Will Thomas did, right, in the locker room in front of girls. I mean, those types of things. And this is what I'm saying, is standing in front of those people the other day, it just it rekindled the flame in my heart to fight as hard as I can and try to fan the flame in other people's heart,
right,
to continue to fight, to stand up, to push back, get engaged in your grandkids' school system. If it's dirty and they're not going to clean it up, get them out.
Yep. Pull
them out. There's tons of things online that are resources for homeschooling. There are options, and it's why I think it's so important that we pass school choice here in the state of Kentucky. We'll be bringing that legislation back in the 2024 session. And I'll say also to the school districts that are skirting Senate Bill 150, number one, follow the law.
Right.
Number two, 2024 session's not that far away.
Right.
And if you didn't like what we did in Senate Bill 150, you're definitely not going to like some of the legislation that we file.
Yeah.
But it's over. We cannot continue down this path. It's not sustainable. Yeah. We have to change. We have to fix it. I understand that the answer is not in Frankfurt. The answer is not in Washington, D.C. But I also understand that we all have a place and a role to play.
Right.
And as long as that we're fulfilling that role, then when we stand before God,
right,
and give an account for what we have done, then he's not going to look at us and say, why did you not do more? You could have done this. You had this influence. You didn't use it. You didn't pray about this.
Right.
You saw this happening in your grandchild's life, but you were silent about it. You knew this was going on in the school system. Why did you not take a stand? That's what I don't want to happen. I know that we're dealing with things that are the result of it being the end times.
Right.
But our responsibilities never change in the middle of those end times.
Right.
The thing that we are not to do is to be lukewarm.
Yes.
We are to be on fire. We are to be fervent, and we are to have faith. Yes. And that is what we have to keep doing. I think parents have to do that. Grandparents have to do that. You have little children.
Right.
I now have 2 grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren that'll be here in about 9 weeks, which is unbelievable.
Yes.
I think about where I'm at in my life and the years of maybe being somewhat passive. And I was engaged. I was in jails. I was in juvenile detention centers. I was trying to help young people. I'm not saying that. We all have a role to play, but when God gave me the opportunity to engage in this realm, I want to do it with every fiber of my being, and I want to use it to encourage other people to do the same thing.
Yeah, and whenever I think about like the prayer and counsel and all this that you went through before you decided to run, you know, and there were obviously detractors even among friends of ours that weren't in favor probably of you doing that, of you running for office. Then I look back at all of that and just realize that if how things worked out, even the election that you were elected in, the one that you weren't elected in, the two elections that you've won, how I don't think it's possible that Senate Bill 150 gets passed if you weren't elected. And that's not just me saying it. There's been a lot of other people have said that, some behind the scenes, some on social media and things like that. And that's not to say, that's not to just say, oh, Josh Calloway's the greatest, representative ever.
Definitely not.
But
That's
it
my
shows
wife.
the design of God and how this burden was placed on you spiritually. And that's, where the battle is going on, right? The battle is spiritual, the fight is spiritual, but the results are not just limited to the spiritual world.
Yeah.
The results exist here. And whenever God begins to move and begins to fight, he's put you in this place. And I think that we have, at least with Senate Bill 150, the first step of what God is trying to work in our society.
Yes.
And if we back down and say, well, we're just going to leave it to the people in Frankfurt to do what they do, then we are withdrawing from the battle and the fight that God has placed in front of us and has given us the power to at least think about that. Think about one legislator can possibly, maybe, change the course of America's, of Kentucky's youth and protect hundreds, if not thousands of youth in this state just by simply not shying away from the battle. Yes, seeking godly counsel. Yes, praying over the election, working, knocking doors and doing, all the legwork that you put into it and all the miles you put on your vehicle, getting this done. What God can do with one legislator. Now think of what he can do if we all got on board. What he could do in your community. If when your neighbor's talking about these issues and doesn't want to talk about it and is passive, you show them what's going on.
Right.
If whenever you go to the school board meeting and they try to shut you down, if you file lawsuits and if you bring them to court against the laws that they are transgressing, if whenever there are things in the libraries that are not supposed to be there, if you get the people together and go get it out.
Yeah.
Go do what is necessary in the legal framework
right.
to go get it. Think of what can happen. That's what I'm saying. Yes, the mechanisms that are against us in the physical world are massive and they seem overwhelming. But God has been able to do more than one, has been able to do more with one, or more with 12, or more with 70 or 120 or 3,000 than the entire world can do with millions. Mm-hmm. Think about the Roman Empire and how powerful they were and the great command and force that they had, and they were overwhelming. And they could not, the early church spread like wildfire through the Roman, they persecuted them, burned them at the stake. They created all kinds of mechanisms against them. They couldn't be stopped.
Still turn the world upside down.
Couldn't be stopped.
Yeah.
Think of what we could do. If there's an election and your legislator is weak and he's squishy or she's squishy or whatever you want to call it, they're not willing to take a stand on this stuff. Run against them. Go door to door, put in the work, knock, say, this is what's going on. This is how they voted. This is what is in our county school. Show them what's in the county school and defeat those, primary them.
Waiting till the election day and looking at the names on the ballot saying, who am I going to vote for?
Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore.
No.
We've focused on this lesser of two evils mindset. That doesn't work anymore.
Yep.
We have to be engaged in the front side. We have to get people that will run for school board, that will run for magistrate, that will run for city council, and that will engage.
Yeah. I am sick, and I know a lot of people are, but I'm sick of the soft, not really manual labor experienced politicians that, ride in Churchill Downs bus all over the place. Mm-hmm. Everything they say to do, they do. And they like living in that world. They like going to Louisville and going to Frankfurt and living in that world with all the rich people and talking about how many people they know. I mean, that's Louisville right there, Lived there for a few years. It's just about who, oh, well, I went to this party or I went to that party. it's time to get those politicians out. They got to go. The people in your community that work hard, that you see sacrifice for others, that have accomplished something with their life, not just gotten a degree from a university and racked up millions or thousands of dollars of debt that they want you to pay back. But I'm talking about people who have worked hard, who have created, who have benefited the community, the people that you know that you can trust whenever you're in a bad spot. Send them to Frankfurt and get those weaselly, horse racing people. I'm, not all the horse racing, but you know what I'm talking about. The ones that like to sit in the millionaires row.
They're there for somebody else's interest.
Yes, exactly. They are parasites of our institution, is what they are. Without our institutions, without you, they can't survive. Mm-hmm. Pick the people that, whenever the people in Frankfurt are opposed to them, they still succeed. Pick them and send them to Frankfurt.
Exactly right.
That's who you need to send. Yep.
This is what I started off with. I asked these 3 words. Did you know? Now you know. Maybe some things that you didn't know.
Or didn't want to know.
And this is the thing. To whom much is given, much is required. Thank you, and God bless you. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back here in a few days with another one. Thank you for watching the Josh Calloway podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to get as much information out as we can about what is going on in our state, in our communities, the country. If you will share, like, and subscribe to this podcast, you could be notified as soon as a new one comes out. Tell your friends and your family about it, because we want people to be informed and engaged in protecting and promoting the truth. Thank you, and God bless.